Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the male reproductive system, and we're looking at it not just as basic biology, but like a piece of brilliant, high-tech machinery. And just like any advanced machine, the physical anatomy, the gears and the tubes, isn't enough on its own. To actually function, this machinery requires two absolute essentials: a highly specialized, high-octane fuel and a sophisticated software system to guide it. So today, we're bridging the gap between those physical organs and the powerful chemical signals that run them.
We usually focus so much on the sperm itself, right? The microscopic vehicles carrying the genetic payload. But a vehicle is literally going nowhere without gas in the tank and a driver at the wheel. So the core question we are tackling today is this: what actually provides the fuel and the navigation for these incredible biological vehicles? To figure that out, we have to look past the sperm and uncover the hidden glands and hormones that make human reproduction possible.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the chemical powerhouse. Then, creating seminal plasma. Third, the control center. And finally, the power of testosterone.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the chemical powerhouse.
Okay, let's dive right into this. As sperm travel out of the testes where they're manufactured, they pass by three vital accessory glands that act essentially as biological fuel pumps. Looking at our chemical powerhouse here, we have the seminal vesicles, which come as a pair. We've got the single prostate gland and another pair called the bulbourethral or Cooper's glands. Each of these secretes a highly specific chemical cocktail that those sperm absolutely need to survive the journey ahead.
Let's zoom in on the seminal vesicles first. Their secretions are honestly fascinating. For starters, they provide fructose. Now, what's wild here is that fructose is this unique, powerful sugar fuel found practically nowhere else in the human body. It is pure energy for the sperm. Alongside the fructose, these vesicles secrete prostaglandins. These are chemical messengers that actually help trigger contractions in the female reproductive tract. So they're literally giving the sperm an external motility boost to help them reach their destination. Moving right along, we have the prostate gland. It's a single, chestnut-shaped gland sitting right at the base of the urinary bladder. The prostate throws in vital energy ions like calcium and phosphate, plus some crucial lipids and proteins. But its real life-saving superpower? Its incredibly high pH. You see, the female reproductive tract and even the male urethra are naturally highly acidic environments. That acid is a great defense against bacteria, but it is completely lethal to sperm. The prostate secretes an alkaline fluid that neutralizes that deadly acid, basically creating a safe passage. Rounding out the trio are the bulbourethral or Cowper's glands. Now these are tiny, about the size of a pea, but their role is totally essential. They act as the ultimate physical preparation team. Before the main payload is even delivered, these glands secrete a clear fluid that lubricates the anatomical machinery and clears out any leftover highly acidic urine from the urethra. It's just that final bit of prep work to ensure the pathways are perfectly safe. Which brings us to Section 2, creating seminal plasma.
When the distinct chemical secretions from all three of those powerhouse glands combine, they create seminal plasma. And as you can see, the seminal vesicles are doing the heavy lifting here, providing about 65% of the total volume. The prostate gland kicks in 25%, and the Cowper's glands wrap up the final 10%. This perfectly balanced cocktail is the absolute ultimate life support system for those reproductive cells.
So the crucial point here, and people mix this up all the time, is understanding this biological equation. Semen and sperm are not the same thing. Semen is the final product. It is the physical reproductive cells, the sperm, combined with that nutrient-rich fluid we just broke down, the seminal plasma. The anatomy builds the cells, but the accessory glands provide the plasma. Put them together, and you've got semen.
And to really appreciate the sheer scale of this biological operation, just look at this number. In a single release of only 2 to 3 milliliters of semen, we're talking about roughly 200 to 300 million sperm. That is a massive fleet of vehicles. But here's the catch. For fertilization to actually happen, at least 60% of them need normal motility, and 40% need a perfectly normal structure. It's a huge numbers game, and it relies entirely on the fuel from that seminal plasma, which, by the way, is exactly why doctors look so closely at these fluid levels when checking human fertility.
But listen, all of this impressive anatomy, it's absolutely nothing without instructions. It's just inert hardware waiting for a signal. To understand how the factory actually turns on in the first place, we have to enter the microscopic control center.
Which takes us right into Section 3, the control center.
Welcome to the microscopic world inside the testes.
where the real instructional programming happens. If you were to slice right through the testes, you'd see a bunch of highly coiled tubes called seminiferous tubules. Inside those tubes is the actual manufacturing floor. That's where male germ cells create the sperm. But the true control center? That sits just outside those tubes. In the empty areas between the tubules, what we call the interstitial spaces, sits a very special group of cells.
These cells hanging out in the outer spaces are known as Leydig cells, or interstitial cells. Think of Leydig cells as the specific biological hardware that synthesizes the system's primary directive. Now, they don't physically build the sperm. Instead, when they get stimulated by hormones sent all the way down from the pituitary gland in the brain, these Leydig cells kick into gear and manufacture the male sex hormones. They literally write the chemical software that runs the entire show.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 4, the power of testosterone. And this brilliantly illustrates the most famous output of those Leydig cells, testosterone. This ultimate guidance hormone dictates the function, development, and drive of the whole male reproductive system through a vital rule of three. It doesn't just do one thing. It's the master switch for three entirely different domains. Number one, it regulates libido, or sexual desire, which is the fundamental behavioral drive for reproduction. Number two, it drives spermatogenesis, the physical creation of the sperm cells. And number three, it develops and maintains the secondary sex characteristics.
Let's actually zero in on that second point for a second, spermatogenesis. If you take away that hormonal signal, if testosterone stops flooding the system from the Leydig cells, the manufacturing floor inside those seminiferous tubules completely shuts down. The very creation of those 300 million vehicles we talked about earlier is 100% dependent on this specific chemical trigger. No software, no manufacturing. Period.
And testosterone doesn't just stay behind the scenes running the internal reproductive system. It dictates the entire external physical blueprint of the male body. Broad shoulders, the growth of facial hair, a deeper voice. These secondary sex characteristics are basically the external evidence that the internal machinery is firing properly. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. The Leydig cells are microscopic, but their hormonal output completely shapes the macroscopic human being.
So we've put all the pieces together. We've seen how the Leydig cells use testosterone as the software to turn on the factory. We've seen how the seminal vesicles, the prostate, and the bulbourethrial glands create the ultimate high-octane fuel and protective plasma to safeguard the vehicles. The machinery is fully operational, perfectly fueled, and expertly guided. But that leaves us with one pretty massive question. With all of this incredible preparation, how exactly does this single surviving cell interact with the female egg to actually spark a completely new life? Well, that is the absolute magic of fertilization, and a perfect topic for our next explainer. Thanks for learning with me today, and keep your curiosity firing.